Welcome to the Default Profitable Podcast. You're listening to the next episode of the podcast, and today we're going to focus on what it takes to start, run, and grow a coaching business. We'll talk about some successes, some failures, and some stories from a real business owner. I'm your host, Matt Nettleton, and today my guest is Steve Rupp. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Truly appreciate it, and been looking forward to being here.
No problem. So why don't we do this? I know you and I have spent a little bit of time talking on the phone, but why don't you introduce yourself and then your company to people who are listening?
Sure. Yeah. So as you introduced, my name is Steve Rupp, and I am the owner of Steve Rupp Coaching. We specialize specifically in helping residential real estate agents grow their business through the use of referrals and leveraged relationships. My background has been 25 years in residential real estate sales, running a team, being one of the top teams in the city out of 10,000 agents. And I tell people I grew up in the business. My dad got into the business the year that I was born, which I still am questioning why he did that, but he did. Started a business then, and then he started up his own company, Century 21 Realty Group 1. For those of you who've been in Indy for a long time, you'll probably recognize that name. It was the number one Century 21 office in the world for 11 out of 13 years. He was the broker owner of that, and then he sold off on that, and I took over the business and grew it, and so forth. So, my whole thing is that I've just had a passion for teaching. My whole family is teachers, so I guess you could say it's been in my DNA to help people, and that's what gives me a whole lot of joy and fills my bucket, if you will.
All right. So let's start. So you go to college. You get out, your dad says, hey, now you're going to do real estate with me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing pretty well at an office that was doing pretty well.
Right.
And so how long did it take you to really settle into being a realtor?
So I graduated from Xavier and with an entrepreneurial studies degree.
All right.
And then I did the most logical next step, and that was I got into banking.
Makes sense.
Most people are like, huh? That doesn't add up. I figured I wanted to sleep with the devil before I needed to work with him and leverage him. So I did that. I was in marketing as well, manufacturer's rep. So I was in that for probably 5 years before I ended up working with my dad, because I saw my dad, and not that I'm afraid of hard work. I've worked hard my whole life. But I saw just how hard my dad worked. I saw the sacrifices he made, and I told myself, I don't want that. And so I intentionally told him I didn't want to work for you. I didn't want to work with you. I didn't want to take over the family business.
Right.
And so when I left my last job, I had nothing to do, and I had and when I say left, I mean I was let go because I had a differing of opinion with the owner. And anyway, so I didn't have anywhere to go. My dad said, listen, Steve, try this for a year. I'll pay for your education, everything. If you don't like it, fine. No problem. You can go do whatever you want to do. But if you do like it, you can stay in it and you can take the business over from me. And so that's what I did. Ended up taking it over from him. We worked together for about 5 years, which is a whole nother story about leadership and working in the family business, working with your father or a family member. Completely different set of dynamics with that. But we found a way to make it work. My dad is very patient. He is easy to work with. He's easygoing. So for me, it was relatively easy. That does not mean we didn't have our share of misunderstandings, let's say. But we did have an end goal in mind. So ended up taking the business over from him, and then ended up growing it several times over, building a team and so forth. So my dad was happy because someone was there to take over his business. So like our database, we have, we've got 3 generations of clients in there that we've helped over the past 51, 52 years. And then, got to the point where I wasn't happy anymore. I was miserable, to be honest with you, Matt. And, it started, slowly over a 3-year period. And, the things that I used to love to look forward to. And for anyone out there who's been in real estate or known real estate agents or whatever, you get a big client, $1 million client or whatever for Indy. That's a pretty good, sale, pretty good client. I wasn't excited anymore about that. I was like, oh man, I gotta work with another client. And it wasn't anything to do with the clients. It wasn't my thing anymore. And it's the only thing I really knew, besides that short stint doing a few other things, really real estate's the only thing I've ever known my whole life. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So that little voice got louder and louder. And one night I was laying in bed with my wife, and we were talking, and I said, I think I'm done. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, I'm done. I'm done selling real estate. Really? Are you serious? It's the only thing you know. Yeah. She said, oh, so you're going to go get a real job. And I said, sweetie, I can't ever get a real job. I gotta work for myself. So at any rate, that kind of morphed into what I'm doing now, which is coaching, because, and that's kind of my thing right now is, it took some time where I had to look inside myself, and that, I mean, let's face it, the way that our society is right now, especially in the United States, having time to yourself is not something that most people do. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
It's hard.
Thinking quietly.
Absolutely. It's hard. I mean, we are chastised for taking vacations. People put it as a badge of honor that they don't take all the vacations to which they're entitled.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist anywhere else in the world.
Right.
And so my point is that we live in a sense of chaos and achievement that I don't believe exists to this degree anywhere else. And so it's working against us.
Right.
I believe that everyone was born with innate ability. I believe that everybody has a talent, a God-given talent. And I believe that there's a lot of people, most people haven't found what that is, and they're living in a life of dissonance. Put another way, they're not fully happy. And you need to take the time to look inside yourself, to be quiet, to listen to what your heart, your soul is telling you. And that was something that I didn't give myself the luxury of doing. And what happened was I became more and more miserable. Now, I think you and I were talking earlier, pre-show, where I think most people agree that there's really two reasons why people make a decision, or they make a big choice, or a change, and that is either you're moving towards something better or you're moving away from pain.
Yeah.
And the latter is a lot more powerful than the former.
Yes.
And so it got to me that moving to something more pleasurable, more happy for me, more joyful for me, wasn't strong enough to pull me away from what I've known my whole life and who I identified as a real estate agent. And until that pain got so much, and my body was telling me, my heart was telling me, you need to make a change, because we can't keep going down this road. I was affecting my health. It was affecting my relationships, notably my family. I'm sure my clients saw it. My team was seeing it. It was manifesting in relationship challenges and so forth. So anyway, it just got to the point of being so bad that I had to do something. And then it all just hit all at once. And here we are. So I had to make that decision, and who I was needed to change. So I look back and was like, who am I when I'm happiest? And that is a teacher. And as I said earlier, that is my whole family my whole family is teachers. So I kind of had it ingrained in my DNA. And to be very frank with you, the best real estate agents are teachers, and so it's kind of natural.
Yep.
So anyway, you transitioning to coaching. I'll be honest with you. As soon as I made that decision, told that to my wife, and kind of got it out there, I felt an immediate change. And just my whole demeanor changed. It felt like there was a weight lifted off of me.
Yeah.
Like this is where I belong. This is the path that I have been called to go down.
Yeah.
And I've been happier ever since. Now, I gave up a very good income, but there's only so much of your soul that money can buy for so long.
Yes.
At some point, there's going to be so much dissonance that you're going to have to make a change. And
Yep.
and I got to that point where I was so miserable I had to do something about it.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was really, really hard. And I had a lot of times where I look back and I'm like, what am I doing? Did I make a mistake? Um, Only a fool would be doing this. Why are you walking away from the family business
Right.
after 51 years? Something you can do in your sleep.
Yes.
But it was the best business decision that I've ever made, and it was really important that I did it. My family's happier, I'm happier. I'm selling my business to a very good friend of mine, so he's handling all the sales. So I know my clients are cared for, which was really important to me. My team all had somewhere else to land. They had dreams they wanted to pursue, so that made me happy. So everything just kind of worked out. And then I had this program that I teach to agents that I wrote that was calling me to do, and it's been good.
So there's 2 points that I want to ask questions about. The first one is when you took the business over from your dad,
Yes.
right? You had been in real estate or around real estate your entire life. You had worked with him for 5 years, and suddenly you're in the big chair.
Yep.
What was it that you didn't know that if you had known it would have made it easier for you to succeed?
That's a great question. And I asked my dad, what advice do you have to give me? And I guess we'll start there, and I'll finish it up with something else on my side. But anyway, he had said, first of all, and this is probably isn't going to be new to anybody. The best advice is typically not new. Number one, say what you do and do what you say. Always follow up with people when you say you're going to follow up. Provide more than you expect, and treat people the way that they want to be treated. Lastly, he had said, and this is the thing that I really I wish I took more to heart, and I did more. And that is, he told me, this is a lot easier said than done. He said, Stephen, you need to take as a business owner, this business, any business that you own can suck the life out of you. It can destroy relationships. It can destroy marriages. It is the biggest monster for destroying marriages than anything else out there is being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
He said, so there's two things you need to do. Number one, you need to take 5 weeks of vacation a year. And that needs to go on your calendar first before anything else. Number two, one of those weeks needs to be just with your wife. No kids, no friends, just you two.
Yeah.
And he said, the other thing I'm going to make a caveat about is do not ever, ever apologize to your kids for taking the time off with your wife.
Yeah.
And we have taken vacations. We haven't necessarily taken 5 weeks of vacations a year, like my dad has suggested, and we also did not do the couples only vacation every year. I wish we had. And I would suggest that anyone listening to this, if you're a business owner, we grind. And that's what we are designed to do is we grind, we push, we sacrifice. That's just what you have to do to start a business or to take a business owner over that's underperforming and maximize it. But at the same time, what's as important is you have to take time off to reset. And this kind of is a full circle for what we were talking about before. You've got to reset. At some point, you will get burned out. At some point, you are going to tire. At some point, your relationships will suffer. And the sooner that you can put those times on your calendar for when you're going, which should be when you're doing your calendar planning for the next year, that's the first thing that should be on your calendar. And heck, if you want to plus that, pay for those vacations up front so
Yep.
you can't get out of them. And now you got to go
Right.
because the other thing that we know as business owners is we're really good at making excuses as to why we can't do family time, why we need to take time off for the business. So, in other words, don't let those excuses get in the way and
Yep.
start and make sure that your family knows when those are and they can
Yep.
actually look forward to them, and they're going to be the ones that hold you accountable to making sure you do it. It's just that important. That's the most important thing, in my opinion, that I think people need to keep in mind is they got to take time to work on their business or on the relationship and not in their
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. Yeah. That is good good fundamental advice. And I'm just like everybody else guilty of not doing those things. So when you sit down with somebody, and this will be interesting because I've been in real estate, but when you sit down with somebody who's coming into real estate and says, I'm thinking about leaving my corporate gig and being a realtor, what's the story that you tell them to help them realize the full difference of what they're signing up for?
That's a great question. And I've asked it a lot. I've had it asked of me a lot. And I train a lot of new agents too. And so I'm going to answer that through a real quick story, if I may,
Yep.
that I think will drive the point home. And that is, I graduated from Xavier University and I had an entrepreneurial studies major. That's when it was back in the mid 90s when entrepreneurship was in its infancy. For those of you who are around Indy, Dr. Kratko, he was one of the founders of entrepreneurship at Ball State. My professor for entrepreneurship 1 came into class. There were 40 of us in the class. I remember this, Matt, like it was yesterday.
Yep.
Walked in, Dr. Eustace was there. He came in and he said, "What the heck are you doing in my class?" And everyone's looking around and we're like, "What?" He said, "I'll say it again. Why are you in this class?" We're looking around. He said, "I want you to look around at everybody." So we're all looking around at each other. And he said, "The success rate of entrepreneurs is 10%. There are 40 of you in this class. That means only 4 are going to be successful. I'll ask you again, with odds like that, why are you in this class? Why are you wanting to do this? Why are you not wanting to go find a job?"
Yes.
And he said, "And by the way, I have a stack of drop ad forms here. If this is not the right path for you, I will be happy to help you find your new path." All right. So with that in mind, that's kind of the tough love that I give people who ask about that, because real estate is like any other business. You're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're running your own show. The problem is, unlike a lot of other businesses, you are not given any real information and training on how to run a business. You're taught how to pass a stupid state test that really has very little to do with actually selling real estate. And so you get into it and you think that you know what you need to know in order to sell real estate, but actually you don't. And that's the worst part about all of this. That's the worst irony about real estate. So when people ask me about Steve, I'm thinking about getting into real estate. And I ask them one question, well, 2 questions. Number 1, why? What is your why? What are you trying to accomplish by getting into real estate? And it better be more than money.
Yeah.
I want to know what is motivating them, because they're going to have to dig deep to get that out when the going gets tough, and it will get tough, because we know that only 10% will make it after 3 years. That's a proven statistic, proven over and over again. But the other thing is, why do you want to get into real estate? What is driving you to do that? And I'm looking for 2 things to come out of their mouth. And I'm hoping neither one of them does. And invariably, 80% of people, 1 or 2 of these things, the next statements come out of their mouth. "Oh, I just love looking at houses. I love HGTV. Man, I just love that. If I could do that every day, Steve, this is just so happy." I'm like, don't get into real estate then. This is not the career for you.
Yeah.
Number 2, I want more freedom. Freedom of what? Well, my time. My boss tells me that I need to be there at 8:30 in the morning. I can't leave until 5. I got a 1-hour lunch break. Okay. You know what? I have news for you. You are still working for a boss. It's just that boss is you. And so my question to new agents is, you have boss you and employee you. At the end of every day, you need to have boss you be okay with the job that employee you did in order to invite you back the next day.
Right.
And if you did not do a good enough job, boss you will not. And I'm here to tell you what, if boss you doesn't have the cojones to let you go, the market will.
Yep.
So there is a difference. And the difference is, and the joke in real estate, you probably can know what I'll say here, but real estate's part time. You pick which 12-hour part of the day you're going to work,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
part of it, because it's retail and it's worse than your storefront locations, because you know what, you don't have any hours. Now you can leverage
Yeah.
your time, you can protect your hours and so forth, and hire people to do that. But when you're just getting started, guess what? You're the chief cook and bottle washer, just like you are with any business that you start or own. You're doing everything. And if you don't
Right.
follow up with a lead within 5 minutes, the chances of you converting that lead go down 87%. So you got to be ready to go all the time. And then you have to ask yourself, what is more important? Is it the time that I'm spending with my family or whatever it is that you're doing, or stopping what I'm doing and taking this lead? And you have to know what that number is. My time is worth X dollars an hour. My family time is worth X plus bonus time per hour. How much is going to take me to get off my boat at the middle of Geist or whatever it is that you're doing to say, hey, I'm going to go show this house, or I'm going to go list this house? There's a number attached to that. You better know what that number is. But the bottom line is, if someone asks, I'd like to get into real estate because it looks fun and sexy and you guys make all kinds of money, guess what? The average real estate agent makes less than $54,000 a year gross. That is before taxes, before company splits, before expenses. The average real estate agent nets $23,000 a year. So you telling me that you're doing it for the money, that is a wrong answer on a lot of different levels.
Yeah. 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 That is not just for real estate, but that whole answer is really for anybody that is thinking about going into business for themselves. Is you better figure out why.
Mm-hmm.
And money's a nice number, but there better be more than that.
Absolutely. 100%.
I think I think it might have been Stephanie Daly, Send a Friend Lasagna, said, in the end, you've got to be willing to wake up at 3 a.m. and think about your business and not get upset about it.
Mm-hmm. That's
If
right.
you can do that, you'll probably be okay. So,
Yeah. And I did until I didn't. And that's
right.
right. And that's when I knew it was time to get out. The other thing that I would suggest is that whether you're in real estate or any business owner, before you start your business, you need to know what your exit strategy is. How are you going to get out? If you choose to stay in it because you're happy and you love it, awesome. And there's some real estate agents and entrepreneurs who do that. That's great.
Yep.
But the vast majority of people, if you're an entrepreneur, you are probably not a good manager. You need to
Right.
hire that. And if your talent is starting businesses, then that's what you need to be doing. And you need to be starting businesses. You get it to a certain point in their growth cycle, and then you need to have someone else come in and run it, because that probably is not your forte. Probably.
Right.
There are some exceptions, but for the most part, entrepreneurs are not good managers. So that's the other thing that I tell agents as well as business owners who are looking to start their own business. I said, you need to have a life cycle of how you're going to not only start the business, but also get out of it. And what does that look like? What do those goals look like? What does your company look like? How are you going to know when it's time for you to exit? And you need to make sure that it's saleable, because it should be a business built on systems, models, and replicatable income that someone is willing to buy. And how you value it is going to depend on your business. But that's what you need to be looking at, because it should be worth something. And that's the biggest issue that I think a lot of real estate agents have is you have a lot of tons of real estate agents that are getting out of the business now. And guess what? They're leaving their business completely behind. They're not getting anything for it. Well, guess what?
Right.
It's worth something. I mean, I sold my
Well,
business.
it could be. It could be if they ran it right and set it up right.
Correct. Yes.
Like you talked about having 3 generations of customers in your database, and that's most people don't have one generation of customers because they don't understand how a database is supposed to work.
That's right.
So they have no data hygiene, and then the data has no value.
And here's the irony about this is that you have to make sure that you are not the reason why your customers are staying, because
Right.
your business won't be worth anything to somebody else.
Correct.
And at the end of the day, people necessarily aren't buying the person or the company, they're buying the experience. And if you can show them that they are going to continue to get the experience that they've gotten, assuming it's a great experience. And I always tell my clients, we provide a magical level of experience where we guide, lead, and protect you through the process. And then we go and back that up through systems and models that are duplicatable, replicatable, scalable, all the rest. The clients are hiring us for that experience. They're hiring us for the systems and models, and it's predictable, just like preferable behavior, right? And so when I stepped out, will we lose some clients? Probably. But when I took it out, when I sold it to my friend and my colleague, our clients for the most part have stayed with us because they know that the experience they're going to get is going to be wholly the same as what they've gotten over the past 51 years. That's the most important thing. And that could be where real estate or any company that somebody builds. It should be based on systems and models and not on the business owner.
Right. Yeah. If it's based on the business owner, it's a job.
Correct.
And you can't sell a job, unfortunately. All right. So, hey, I think that's a quick 27 minutes to get it wrapped up. Anybody that's interested in Steve and what he does for a living can find more information in the show notes at defaultprofitable.com. As a listener, if you've stuck with us this long, 3 ways you can help. First, wherever you're listening, hit subscribe. Second, leave a review. And third, if you hear something interesting, share the episode with somebody else you think would also benefit. Steve, thanks for being a guest.
Thank you for having me, Matt. I loved it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And to our listeners, stay tuned. We'll be back next week with another episode of Default Profitable. Till then, stay focused, keep working, stay profitable.